Finally, the Fell Dragon deck. So, the Fell Dragon finally here. I've been planning to do this for a while, but I'm finally doing it, and as you can see, we are using Mawika, of course, because no Fell Dragon deck is good without her. Well, with exceptions, of course, but we are mostly gonna be relying on Linny's and Dory's summons here. Now, the deck idea here is very simple. Much like every deck that uses Fell Dragon, we have a bunch of cards for the support zone that get easily spent, or when spent are beneficial for us. The deck plan itself is very simple. Round 1 and round 2, all you want to do is Linny's prop arrow, Dory's skill. Round 2, Dory's skill, Linny's prop arrow. And by round 3, if you've been lucky with your cards, you can already go in with the Fell Dragon, wiping the entire opponent team by combining Mawika's talent card with the Surfing Buddy card. Now, of course, your luck is not always that good. You are not gonna be winning the game round 3 constantly, so in case the game goes on for longer than round 3, we have to fight for the Death Arcane card to keep Mawika specifically alive for the round 4 to begin. And well, if you haven't won the game by round 4, it usually means you are not going to win the game. With exceptions, of course, especially against stall decks. The game may very well go beyond round 4 with this deck. Now, most Fell Dragon decks, well, to be precise, Fell Dragon decks, well, decks reliant on the Fell Dragon always use Mawika. Because Mawika's talent card, and more specifically Mawika's 2-cost bike, instantly activates one of your summons, and when you only have the Fell Dragon on the field, that will always be the Fell Dragon. Which is why Mawika is a must-have for your Fell Dragon decks. Now, why Linny and Dory? Well, because both Linny and Dory have a summon that only has one usage. And regarding that one usage, when playing a Fell Dragon deck, any deck with, well, to be more precise, any characters with one usage summons are good on your Fell Dragon decks. Mona, Dory, Linny, Amber, Gachina, all of them are good, because all of those characters are able to get a summon easily that only has one usage. Of course, out of the examples I gave, Amber's summon does not leave the field until one of your characters has taken damage. So keep that in mind if you play Amber. But more specifically, like, well, actually I can talk about it later why Amber is a good character to use with the Fell Dragon deck. But you can already see here with my hand cards, we of course have a narration footnote that creates a toy soldier on both sides of the field, along with the blessing from Am that discards summon. If it has one usage, you get 1 basic die. If it has 2 usage, you gain 2 basic dice. And if it has 3 or more usage, you gain the dice, and your most damaged character heals for 2 HP. So, maximum of 2 dice. Everything beyond that, you get 2 HP. And the 2 dice, of course. And of course, like I mentioned, we have the Surfing Buddy here. Because, you know, Fell Dragon plus narration footnotes plus Blessing of Am plus Surfing Buddy is a great combination.
Prepare to be amazed.
Other than that, we simply have a bunch of draw cards and a bunch of support cards. Nothing too special.
Cryo Incarnate.
Now the character-wise, what I've picked here to use are Dory and Linny. Linny so that we have access to prior resonance and more precisely the woven dice. You can also hear, in this case I had both Fell Dragons in my hand. There was no need, no reason not to play one already. Because you can see if I do not do damage to my opponent, they have not played their arcane card. That deck 90% of the time has Winds of Freedom arcane card. So I want to actually deal more damage here. The reason why I don't play Narration Footnotes, it's so that I can do this combination, this combo that I mentioned. And so, because of course Shenhe's Burst buffs the toy card damage, so if I were to play Narration Footnotes here, Shenhe, well, the opponent would get more value from it because of the Shenhe Burst. Yeah. But yeah, if you have both dragons in the hand and you have no reason to suspect that your opponent is playing either Extreme or the Yungasaurus Yoink card, you know, no reason not to play one of them. To get that bit of extra damage, because while playing Fell Dragon with Mavuika is the best way to play the Fell Dragon, the second best way, or I guess the more intended way to play Fell Dragon is with summon decks. Because for any deck that is a summon deck, any summon deck, throw 1 or 2 copies of Fell Dragon in there for the bit of extra damage you can get. Like, don't bother with doing odd combos of cards to or Mavuika talents types things to activate the summon as often as possible. Don't bother about that. Just play 1 or 2 copies of it, and when it has a good amount of damage stacks, that slap it on the field and your opponent is going to take even more damage in the end phase. But yeah, in my deck we are using Linny for the woven dice and 1 copy of Pyro Resonance, not 2 copies, because we aren't relying on character damage as much as we are relying on the Fell Dragon damage. And like in this game you saw, Dory is well, Dory is here because Overload allows us to disrupt the opponent's rotation. Because as you can see, we don't have any protection from our cards. The only healing we have in this deck is like Linny's Prop Surplus and Dory's Burst, and you aren't gonna be bursting Dory very often with this deck. So that's also one reason why we are using Fight for the Death instead of something like Stove Guard, which is better for Fell Dragon decks that have protection or healing. But yes, now you can see we have some cards here. We are doing some shenanigans to get more usage for the Fell Dragon. You see, we removed a card from there. Fell Dragons gained 1 more usage. Like so. Of course, I have no rush to actually play the new Fell Dragon yet, because I know the opponent is going to do their shenanigans here. And we are hoping, you know, for the Chang the Knight to get activated, and it does. I think actually this right here was probably the biggest blunder my opponent makes in this match. Had they used a skill on Linny, Chang the Knight wouldn't have activated, and you can see I only have 12 cards left. There ain't much cards I need, but the Chang the Knight gives me another ultimate surfing buddy, and that was like, oh, you are in trouble right now. We empty our hand a little, because you can see we cannot exactly tune. Another one of Blessing of Amps, meaning we can play both the Narration Footnotes, or alternatively of course use these to get rid of these summons, which is what I believe we do here. Like so. 1 dice from both, because both only had 1 usage. We played the Arcane card not only for the HP, but also because it draws us 1 card. There is the Pyro Resonance, which unfortunately does nothing for me right here. Also, we didn't draw gamblers, which is unfortunate, but seeing the situation here, there isn't much my opponent can do, because you can already guess, had they taken Raiden, I would have played the other ultimate surfing buddy, David Shenhe, and now I can just do a normal attack, or play the ultimate surfing buddy, whichever I feel. I of course do a normal attack so that I can activate the ultimate surfing buddy onto their Raiden. And well, our opponent has played the arcane card. That deck hasn't got like any healing. You can see they have Lotus Crisp, but that doesn't help. The Fell Dragon is pierce damage. Which, by the way, play Fell Dragon while you still can, because this is the dirtiest goddamn tactic in the game, because your opponent simply cannot do anything. Once you have the combo set up, your opponent cannot survive it. But yeah, I personally think we are going to see Fell Dragon, the pierce damage is going to be changed into physical damage. That's my guess. But on to the next match. Now, I did mention why we have Dory and Linny here. You know, for the resonance cards, for the overload to disrupt the opponent's rotation. But what other combos can you play with Fell Dragon? Well, the answer is, like I mentioned, all the characters that have one usage summons. And I would personally like to pick exactly one other deck, because I of course wanted to make my own deck. This is entirely my own. I haven't seen anyone else play this combination. If you have played this before, well, good for you. Great minds think alike. But
to be amazed.
To give a shout out to another Fell Dragon deck that I consider to be also a very good one, Mawika Amber Kachina. Why do I like that version of the deck? Because Amber has been buffed. Amber now has 12 HP. So you first things first, you have extra survivability with that deck. Amber Summon gives you -2 damage as well as 2 pyro damage. So Amber Summon also allows you to stay alive longer. Combine that with Kachina. With Kachina also, remember, Kachina's skill only costs 2 dice, meaning that and after that you have to of course change characters when Kachina is in the Night Soul Blessing state to get the summon from Kachina. But overall, Kachina's skill is cheaper. It's cheaper overall to get multiple summons from Kachina compared to someone like Dory or Linny or Mona. And the third reason why I like Mawika Kachina Amber combo, it allows you to also get crystallize reactions, which once again give you extra protection, meaning you stay alive longer, meaning you can in fact change the Fight for the Death arcane card for the stove card for those extra draws. And with that deck you can like absolutely go until round 5, round 6 even, just waiting until you get all the cards you need for the combo to take out the entire opponent team. Because that deck has survivability. Compared to my deck relies completely on the fact that you overload the opponent and mess up their rotation. But that is actually not only reason why this deck is good, because if you quickly do some damage calculations, Linny skill 2 damage plus Dory skill 2 damage. Now most people do not take that damage onto the same character, meaning that you're gonna see here when we go to Dory, our opponent also switches characters. We of course here use Liben. I mean, I could have tuned Pyro Resonance and done a Dory skill, and then going from there, because that would have been more stacks for the more damage stacks for the Fell Dragon. But in this kind of gameplay, like I knew I gonna be able to avoid the swirl from Mizuki anyway, so I decided to just ramp instead. Since against aggressive decks you want to get ramp early to get those extra dice, extra cards, so that you can do at least part of the combo to take out the important characters to the opponents. Well, for the opponent. In this game we of course want to snipe Ayaka and Mizuki, while Fischl alone is no threat. And well, Mizuki also isn't as big of a threat as she is with the talent card, which she currently does not have. But yeah, like I was mentioned, the damage. We of course have the Pyro Resonance for this reason. Of course, like I mentioned, only one copy, because at the end of the day this is a Fell Dragon deck, not a double Pyro deck.
Prepare to be amazed.
But if you count the round 1 damage, let's assume you get double overload. In a way that you Lini skill, opponent switches characters, you Dori skill, opponent stays on the same character, and then the summons deal the overloads. So you get 2 damage, 2 damage. Lini's summon, 3 damage onto the character that took Dori's skill, total of 5 damage. They get overload to the character that originally was hit by prop arrow. Dori's skill does 1 damage plus overload damage, so 5 damage, meaning opponent, let's assume they have only 10 HP characters, now has 2 characters with 5 HP. And it's much easier to get the Fell Dragon onto 4 stacks of extra damage other than 6. So the overload combos you can do with this deck actually support the Fell Dragon in a way that you don't have to get the maximum stacks for the damage. Also, when you are, I can quickly mention, my first defeats with this deck were simply because I, 1, did not do my damage calculations with my characters properly, 2, I didn't properly calculate the usage and the damage of the Fell Dragon. Because Fell Dragon by standard has 1 usage, 1 damage. And what you see here, currently gained 1, that is the 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1. So when this stack has 5, you are at max damage, while the usage has no upper limit, so it can go as far as possible, or big as possible. So yeah, my first defeats with this deck, in fact, the reason why I didn't win, simply because I did not calculate the damage properly. And I think that's something with, if you plan to play Fell Dragon, you have to learn to play, calculate your cards, your dice, and most of all you have to learn to calculate the damage your Fell Dragon can do. How many activations can you get? How much damage is that going to be? You can see here, we see a possibility for a snipe, because after there are Lini has 2 prop surplus stacks, so we are planning to actually take out Mawika here. You saw there we used, hold on, we need to pick that. We used Sunyata Flower on the Scions of Canopy before we played the bikes, because the dragon didn't have enough usage yet. Now you can see it has total of 1 plus 2 usage, so 3. Meaning we can actually get all 3 activations here, which is enough to take out Fischl and most of Ayaka's HP. You can also have, we only have 4 damage stacks, but that still means we do 1 plus 4 damage, so a 5. Which of course with double activation is enough to take out Fischl. Once again, we unfortunately do not have gamblers in hand. Also a quick mention, in decks like mine, where the summoners are reliant on skills, You can very well use Golden Troops reward, because not only is it good for making Mawika's talent cards free to play, it also is good for discounting Dory's or, for example, Mona's skills. So in my opinion, a great addition to such decks. And you can see here our opponent's summons aren't able to in any way take out Linny, so we can just follow it up with Linny's elemental skill and win the game. But on to the next one. Now, I've already gone over a bunch of things related to the Fell Dragon, but there's a few extra notes I would like to make. First things first, why is the Fell Dragon not considered a Simulanga summon?
Prepare to be amazed.
It doesn't get double activation. Well, any card that says anything about Simulanga summons does not affect the Fell Dragon, even though the Fell Dragon is from Simulanga, as those of you who played the summer event should know. And that makes me incredibly annoyed, because I was hoping when the Fell Dragon was released that the Simulanga strategy is actually going to get some use. And my hopes were of course crushed. What was the point? It isn't considered a Simulanga summon. But yeah, other than that, I do have to say, this, apart from decks, well, I mentioned before, there are two ways to play the Fell Dragon. Either with Mawika, or with summon characters, or more in a summon deck. You either play Fell Dragon with Mawika or with summon decks. Okay? If you play Fell Dragon with Mawika, that is, in my opinion, the current dirtiest strategy in the entire game. Because like mentioned, once you have the Fell Dragon combo going, your opponent can do nothing. I think the only way to counter the full Fell Dragon combo, or like only deck that can live through it, is like all 12 HP characters and you have Siege Wind to increase their max HP. And you are somehow able to keep all of your characters at max HP. That is like the only way to live through the full Fell Dragon combo. And even still, there's, at least in theory, there's ways to still win the game, but then we are talking about such edge cases that they aren't ever actually like gonna happen in reality. Here, by the way, we are gonna be doing some gambling with the ultimate surfing buddies and we see who Tao is going for the technique here. And luckily, we win the gamble. But yeah, if you play Fell Dragon with Mawika, that is probably the dirtiest tactic in the entire game. Simply as a part of summon deck, in my opinion, that is the intended way to play the Fell Dragon, and in my opinion that is completely fine. Since after all, summon decks are most easily countered by decks that do a bunch of damage in one round. And in those cases, a Fell Dragon that only activates during the end phase is not a threat. So in my opinion, that's not a dirty tactic, but playing Fell Dragon with Mawika, that is a dirty tactic. And personally, while I think it's incredibly funny to play Fell Dragon and wipe the entire opponent team in one round, I don't plan on doing it in the future.
Prepare to be amazed.
Here you might wonder, what in the ever-loving hell am I doing? The answer is, I'm trying to play around their ramp with Liven. Or more precisely, I'm trying to match their ramp with my Liven. After all, you can see we have the second Fell Dragon in hand and we have the blessing from M, meaning we can turn the current Fell Dragon into dice. And of course get the max damage stacks to instantly take out Genshin, even if they use a skill.
Observe.
But yeah, personally, like I mentioned, we are either going to see Fell Dragon's max damage decreased, or we are going to see the damage changed into physical damage. That's my guess, because this thing is absolutely going to get nerfed. Here we were looking not only for Science of Canopy but also another blessing from M, so that we could use the surfing body to reactivate the Fell Dragon. Instead we do not get it, so we go to Mawika so we can do the skill and get another 2-cost bike. After all, since our opponent's biggest damage comes from the technique, they are going to spend quite a lot of time for that. Not to mention we have 3 surplus stacks for Lini. So there is nothing much our opponent can do anymore. Here we gamble with the Arcane card and we win the gamble. You can see we win the gamble, as you can see here, not to mention Mawika's talent card. We of course go for the more guaranteed kill, or cheaper kill there. And that's another victory. On to the last game of today. Now for this last game, I'm simply going to go over the game plan of this deck. I've talked enough about everything else related to Fell Dragon. So we simply go over the rotation of this deck. Starting hand, you have 2 options. Well, all the time you want to keep some ramp cards, be it Singyo Harald, be it Liben, or be it Countdown to Showdown, anything that can be used for ramping round 1. Other priority, Golden Troops Reward, absolutely keep it for Mawika.
Prepare to be amazed.
And once you have chosen your cards, round 1 you have 2 options, usually based on your dice. If you have good dice, you should go for Lini plus Dory skill. If you have bad dice, or the opponent is playing an aggressive deck, go for ramp. In this case our opponent, well, that deck would be aggressive if they started with the dragon, but for some reason they start with Jaska here. Also, what is Liu Shu doing in that deck, I do not know. It seems every time I face that deck we are going to see a new version of it. And here you can see we don't do much, even though well, there wasn't much I could have done. The dice weren't good, the cards weren't exactly good here. But luckily now we do get at least a good amount of Electro dice, so we can do a Dory skill, and now we have both Liben and Strategize for the rest of our dice. Mawika talent, very nice to get early on, no need to fish for it later. Opponent finally going to the dragon and starting to fight. Now luckily they do not discard a bullet with that first skill. But then we get a burst, and I think with this burst, yeah, there comes a bullet, so now it's looking a little bad. Luckily we lost only double Sunyata and 1 Timmy there, so nothing too bad. Especially as you can see we already have some extra usage for the dragon coming here. Opponent getting, well, 5 HP, not the optimal amount, but a good amount I'd say for round 2 against a deck that isn't being aggressive. Of course I would be a much more aggressive if I had the dice there to do the double skill, but no luck. Now you can see we have double surfing body, we have blessing from M, we have both dragons. This is starting to look pretty good, but we still need those damage stacks along with the usage stacks for the dragon. And damage stacks, of course, much easier to get, especially because we do not have Sunyata flowers in our deck anymore. But at least there is no fear of, you know, Dragon's Burst discarding our dragons. The opponent really trying to get that Dragon Burst down. Of course, this allows for me to get both summons on the field, meaning we get up to 4 stacks next round. And here we unfortunately lose Scions of Canopy along with narration footnotes. Of course, once again, the other Liben not really needed anymore, especially since we do not have Sunyata flowers. Now here it's looking a little sketchy, you see, not much HP, but as you can see we played one of our dragons because this damage right here was calculated. That part right there, and of course we can play Blessing of M to get rid of this dragon, or more precisely turn it into dice, if we need to. And so I believe the final round of this game begins. We of course start first and play the Arcane card. We play it on Mawika since now Mawika has enough HP to survive a Narwhal skill, and also Dory has enough HP to survive a Narwhal skill, assuming there aren't any bullet shenanigans going on. Now we see the Golden Roof's reward, making the talent cards free to play. And also this time we have gamblers in hand. We turn the dragon into dice, play the new dragon, now with maximum damage. There goes the gamblers and there goes the first kill. Now here of course had we narration footnotes we could absolutely kill the dragon right here and now. But we cannot, so we simply go for a normal attack. Our opponent, you can see there, no matter even if they had bullets in hand, not enough damage to take out Mawika. And we can use the last blessing from M to discard the dragon so that we can burst Mawika and win the game. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. I'll see you all next time.